My husband's secretary looked me up and down at the office party and said, "No wonder he works late so often, avoiding going home." I smiled sweetly and asked her one simple question very quietly. Her confident expression cracked immediately like glass, and she avoided me the entire rest of the night, hiding in corners and leaving early without saying goodbye. I smiled at Elizabeth. Not a big smile, just enough to show teeth. The kind of smile that could mean anything. "That's funny," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "I was just thinking about how much Ryan must trust you." She blinked, her champagne glass pausing halfway to her lips. "What? With all those late nights? All that access?" I took a step closer, still smiling. The other wives were pretending to look at their phones now, but I could feel them listening. It must be nice having someone believe in you so completely. Even after mistakes. Elizabeth's face did something complicated. The confident smirk flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice had changed. Less champagne bold, more uncertain. I leaned in close enough that only she could hear me. Close enough to smell her expensive perfume and the wine on her breath. "Does Ryan know about October 12th? I asked quietly. "Because I'm wondering if the senior partners know that you've been accessing their confidential settlement files from his computer after hours." The color drained from her face like someone pulled a plug. Her champagne glass actually trembled in her hand. "I haven't," she started, but I just kept smiling. "Have a wonderful evening, Elizabeth," I said, full volume again. Then I walked away, heading toward the bar like I'd just commented on the weather. My hands were shaking when I ordered a gin and tonic. I'd been planning that moment for 3 days, ever since Rachel sent me the full report. But planning something and actually doing it are different things. I could feel Elizabeth staring at my back. I didn't turn around. The bartender handed me my drink and I took a long sip, trying to look casual. Trying to look like a woman who hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of her husband's office Christmas party. It started 6 months ago. That's when I first noticed Ryan's pattern changing. We'd been married for 9 years. Together for 12. I knew his rhythms the way you know your own house in the dark. Where all the furniture is, which floorboards creak. He was a corporate attorney at Mitchell & Harrison, one of those mid-sized firms that does well enough that everyone drives nice cars but not so well that they make the news. He worked hard. He always had. Late nights were normal. But 6 months ago the late nights changed flavor. Before he'd come home tired and distant, smelling like coffee and printer toner. He'd heat up whatever I'd left him, eat standing at the kitchen counter, maybe tell me about a deposition or a difficult client. Then he'd shower and fall asleep within minutes. After he came home tired but wired. He'd shower first, immediately. He'd pick at his food. He'd be on his phone constantly, texting, his face doing things I couldn't read. And he started working late on Wednesdays, which he'd never done before because Wednesday was when the partners played golf and the office was quiet. I'm not stupid. I know what those signs usually mean. So I did what you're supposed to do. I checked the credit cards. I found hotel charges from the Marriott downtown. 3 of them, all on Wednesday afternoons over the span of 6 weeks. The charges stopped after that, but by then I'd already started investigating. I hired Rachel on a Tuesday morning in October, sitting in her small office above a bail bondsman in a strip mall 40 minutes from my house. She looked exactly the same as she had in college, just with better clothes and reading glasses. "You think he's cheating?" Rachel said. It wasn't a question. "I think something's wrong," I said. "I just don't know what." She nodded, made notes on a yellow legal pad. "What's her name?" "The secretary. Elizabeth Thornton. She's been with the firm for 3 years. She's his secretary, but she also does paralegal work. I hesitated. "She's very good at her job." "They usually are," Rachel said. She wasn't being cruel, just factual. "I'll need 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I'll start with the basics. Surveillance, background check, social media. We'll see what shakes out." What shook out was strange. Rachel called me on a Wednesday afternoon, 2.5 weeks into the investigation. I was at Target staring at throw pillows and trying to remember why I'd come. "Your husband isn't having an affair," Rachel said without preamble. "At least not a physical one." I followed him to 4 different late-night sessions. 3 times he met Elizabeth at the office after hours. Once they met at a coffee shop. Every meeting they talked intensely for 1 to 2 hours. No touching. No hotel rooms. Just talking. What were they talking about? That I couldn't tell you. But here's what's interesting. I ran a deep background on Elizabeth Thornton and something popped. She had a DUI arrest on October 12th. Hit a parked car leaving a bar in Riverside. Blood alcohol was 0.12. Should have been a slam dunk prosecution. Should have been. The charges disappeared. Not dropped, disappeared. The arrest record got sealed. The whole thing vanished from the public database within 72 hours. That takes serious legal intervention, Catherine. The kind of intervention a mid-sized law firm could provide if they were very motivated. I stood in the Target aisle holding a gray throw pillow, my phone pressed to my ear. Why would the firm cover up her DUI? That's the question, isn't it? Rachel said. I did some more digging. Called in a favor with a friend at a rival firm. Elizabeth has access to things most secretaries don't. Client files. Settlement documents. Partner communications. Your husband shares his computer password with her so she can handle things when he's in court. That's normal, I said. Secretaries need access. Sure. But here's what's not normal. There've been whispers at that firm for about 6 months. Nothing concrete, nothing you could take to the bar association. But rumors about billing irregularities on a major case. Hours that don't add up. Work that was supposedly done but maybe wasn't. The kind of thing that could sink a mid-level associate's career if anyone looked too closely. My mouth went dry. Ryan. I can't prove anything, Rachel said. But the timeline matches. Elizabeth's DUI happens in October. The firm makes it vanish. Your husband starts working late with her constantly right around the same time. And there are those hotel charges from before. What about the hotel charges? They weren't for affairs, Catherine. I checked the dates against court records. Those were days your husband was supposedly in depositions out of town. But the depositions were local. He was billing the client for travel expenses that didn't happen. I sat down on the floor of Target, right there in the home goods section. A woman with a cart full of Christmas decorations gave me a concerned look and kept walking. So they're both in trouble, I said slowly. Elizabeth knows Ryan falsified billing. Ryan helped Elizabeth cover up her DUI. They're stuck together. That's my read, Rachel said. Mutually assured destruction. She keeps quiet about his fraud, he keeps her employed and protects her from the DUI consequences. But Catherine, here's the thing. If Elizabeth has been accessing confidential files from his computer and if anyone finds out, that's a whole different level of problem. That's a breach of client confidentiality. That's disbarment territory for everyone involved. Does she have access to confidential files? I can't prove she's actually accessed anything, Rachel said. But she has his password. She's there after hours. And a secretary with a secret that big? She's either playing it completely safe or she's taking advantage. My money's on the latter. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then I'd been watching. Waiting. Trying to figure out what to do with information that felt like holding a live grenade. Ryan didn't know I knew anything. He came home late on Wednesdays. He was distracted, irritable, always on his phone. We barely talked anymore. We hadn't had sex in 2 months. When I tried to ask him what was wrong, he said he was stressed about work and I should be more understanding. At night, lying next to him in the dark, I'd think about confronting him privately. But what would that accomplish? He'd deny everything, or he'd confess and beg me to keep quiet, or he'd somehow make it my fault for not trusting him. The problem wouldn't go away. Elizabeth would still be there, still working late with him, still holding leverage over both of us. Well, if I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. The Christmas party was perfect. Public enough that Elizabeth couldn't make a scene, but intimate enough that the right people would notice. The senior partners would be there. Ryan's colleagues. Everyone who mattered. I just needed the right moment. And then Elizabeth handed it to me on a silver platter by insulting me in front of witnesses. I stayed at the bar for 10 minutes, nursing my gin and tonic. From where I stood, I could see Elizabeth across the ballroom. She'd moved away from the cluster of associates' wives. She was standing alone now, her champagne glass empty, her face pale. She kept glancing toward Ryan, who was still talking to his managing partner, oblivious. Good. Let her stew. Jennifer, one of the other wives, materialized at my elbow. She was married to Brian, one of Ryan's fellow associates. We'd done the polite chit-chat routine at these events for years without ever becoming actual friends. Are you okay? Jennifer asked quietly. That was Elizabeth shouldn't have said that. I'm fine, I said smiling. Just needed a drink. She's been drinking a lot tonight, Jennifer said, glancing toward Elizabeth. More than usual. I think the holidays stress her out. Must be hard, I said, being indispensable to so many people. Jennifer gave me an odd look, like she wasn't sure if I was being sincere or sarcastic. She does work really hard. Brian says Ryan would be lost without her. I'm sure he would be. Dinner was called then. Everyone started moving toward the tables, finding their assigned seats. The firm did the Christmas party properly. Seated dinner, assigned tables mixing partners with associates, spouses strategically placed to facilitate conversation. I'd been to 7 of these. I knew the drill. Ryan appeared at my side as we headed toward our table. Having fun? He asked. His tone was neutral, but there was tension in his jaw. Wonderful party, I said. The hotel did a beautiful job with the decorations. What did you say to Elizabeth? He asked, voice low. I complimented her. Why? She looks upset. Does she? I glanced across the ballroom. Elizabeth was at her table, sitting very still, staring at nothing. Maybe the champagne isn't agreeing with her. Ryan's hand found my elbow, gripped just a little too tight. Catherine, what did you say? I stopped walking and looked at him directly. She insulted me, Ryan. She made a joke about you avoiding coming home. In front of other people. I simply reminded her that trust is important in a professional relationship. His face went through several expressions very quickly. Confusion, then understanding, then something that might have been fear. We'll talk about this at home, he said. We certainly will, I agreed. Our table was near the front of the ballroom. Ryan and I were seated with one of the senior partners, Thomas Mitchell, the firm's name partner, and his wife Margaret. Also at the table were 2 junior associates I didn't know well and their spouses. Everyone was polite, smiling, performing the ritual of firm holiday cheer. Elizabeth was 3 tables away. I could see her if I tilted my head slightly. She wasn't eating. She was drinking water now, no more champagne. Every few minutes she'd pull out her phone, look at it, put it back down. Catherine, how have you been? Margaret Mitchell asked. She was in her 60s, elegant, wearing pearls. We haven't seen you at the firm events lately. Just busy with work, I said. I taught high school English, which always seemed to surprise people at these events, like they expected all the wives to be stay-at-home mothers or interior decorators. End of semester is always chaotic. I don't know how you do it, Margaret said. Teaching teenagers. That must be exhausting. It has its challenges, I agreed. But at least teenagers are usually honest about what they're thinking. Even when they're lying, you can tell. Ryan's water glass clinked against his plate. Small sound, but I felt him flinch. Thomas Mitchell launched into a story about a case the firm had just won, some corporate dispute that netted a huge settlement. Everyone listened and nodded and laughed at the right moments. I picked at my salmon. Across the ballroom, Elizabeth's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face went even paler. Ryan excused himself to use the restroom. As soon as he was gone, Thomas Mitchell leaned toward me with a conspiratorial smile. Ryan's doing excellent work lately, he said. Really excellent. We're very pleased with his billables this year. That's wonderful, I said. My smile felt painted on. He puts in the hours. That's what separates the good associates from the great ones. Dedication. He certainly works late a lot, I said lightly. That he does. Lucky man, having a wife who understands the demands of the profession. I wondered what Thomas Mitchell would say if he knew those billable hours included phantom travel expenses and maybe work that was never actually done. I wondered what he'd say if he knew his firm had covered up a DUI for a secretary who might be accessing confidential client files. But I just smiled and said, I appreciate that he loves his work. Ryan came back from the restroom looking worse than when he'd left. He sat down heavily, reached for his wine glass. His hand wasn't quite steady. Dessert arrived. Chocolate mousse with raspberry sauce. I ate mine slowly, savoring it. Elizabeth, 3 tables away, pushed hers around her plate without taking a bite. Then she stood up. Everyone was still eating, still talking. But Elizabeth stood up, grabbed her purse and walked quickly toward the ballroom exit. Not quite running, but close. Several people glanced up, noticed. Ryan definitely noticed. His face went tight with panic. Excuse me, he muttered, standing. Where are you going? I asked. I'll be right back. He followed Elizabeth out of the ballroom. I counted to 30, then excused myself as well. Margaret Mitchell gave me a knowing smile, like she thought I needed to powder my nose or something equally quaint. The hallway outside the ballroom was quiet, elegant, carpeted. I could hear voices coming from around the corner, near the hotel's coat check. Ryan's voice low and urgent. Elizabeth's voice higher, strained. I walked slowly, my heels silent on the carpet. Stopped just before the corner where I could hear but not be seen. Knows something, Elizabeth was saying. I don't know what, but she knows. Ryan, she mentioned October 12th. She knows about the arrest. That's impossible. It was sealed. Nobody knows about that except the firm. Except Thomas. Except whoever he paid to make it disappear. Maybe somebody talked. Maybe. Nobody talked, Ryan said, but he didn't sound convinced. Elizabeth, just calm down. You're overreacting. Catherine probably just. She mentioned the settlement files. Elizabeth cut him off. She said something about me accessing confidential files from your computer. How would she know that unless she knows something? Unless someone told her? Silence. Long silence. Have you been accessing the settlement files? Ryan asked finally. His voice had gone very quiet, very careful. What? Oh. Why would I? Elizabeth. Have you? I needed to know, she said, and her voice cracked. I needed to know if what you did was on the Peterson case or somewhere else. I needed to know how much exposure we had. So yes, I looked. I looked at the files. I looked at the billing records. And Ryan, there's a problem. Jesus Christ, Ryan breathed. The Peterson case has holes in it. Big holes. Anyone who looks closely is going to see that some of those billable hours are fabricated. And if they're looking at Peterson, they might look at other cases. And if they look at other cases. I get it, Ryan snapped. I get it. God, Elizabeth, you shouldn't have accessed those files. Do you understand what kind of risk that is? If anyone finds out. I was trying to help, Elizabeth said. She sounded close to tears now. I was trying to figure out how bad it was. Because if it's bad, Ryan, if they find out, I'm done too. I helped you cover it up. I was there when you logged those hours. My name is on the support documentation. I felt cold. Colder than I'd felt in weeks. Because this was worse than I'd thought. This wasn't just Ryan falsifying billing and Elizabeth covering up a DUI. This was active fraud. This was conspiracy. This was both of them in so deep that there was no easy way out. We need to be calm, Ryan said, but his voice was shaking. We need to think. If Catherine knows something, we need to figure out what she knows and how she knows it. Then we can. Can what? Elizabeth demanded. What exactly is your plan here, Ryan? Because from where I'm standing, your wife just threatened me in the middle of your office Christmas party, and I don't think she was bluffing. I'll talk to her, Ryan said. I'll handle it. Like you've handled everything else? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, Elizabeth said, and now she was definitely crying. Nothing about any of this is fair. I made one mistake. One stupid mistake, and now my entire career is tied to whether or not your wife decides to destroy us both. I stepped around the corner. They both froze. Elizabeth's mascara was running. Ryan looked like he might be sick. Hi, I said pleasantly. Sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering when you were coming back to dinner, Ryan. They're about to do the gift raffle. Ryan opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Catherine. Elizabeth, are you feeling all right? I asked, looking at her directly. You look a little ill. Maybe you should go home and rest. Big day tomorrow, I'm sure. Elizabeth stared at me like I was a snake that had just started talking. I don't. I think that's a good idea, I said, still pleasant, still smiling. Go home. Get some rest. We can all talk more when everyone's feeling better. He looked at Ryan. He looked at me. Nobody moved for a long moment. Then Elizabeth grabbed her coat from the coat check and left without another word. Just walked out of the hotel into the cold December night. Ryan and I stood in the hallway alone. What do you know? He asked finally. Everything, I said. I know about the Peterson case. I know about the hotel charges that weren't really travel expenses. I know about Elizabeth's DUI and how the firm made it disappear. I know about the files she's been accessing. I know all of it, Ryan. His face crumpled. For a moment he looked like he might cry too. How? Does it matter? Catherine, please. It's not what you think. What do I think? I made mistakes, he said. I was under pressure. The firm expects these billable hours and sometimes they're just not there, and I thought I could smooth things over, just a little padding here and there, nothing major. But then it got complicated and Elizabeth found out, and then she had her arrest and I helped her because she was going to lose her job, and then we were both stuck, I finished. He nodded miserably. Here's what's going to happen, I said. My voice was calm level. I practiced this too. Tomorrow you're going to go into the office early. You're going to check every single file Elizabeth has accessed. You're going to figure out exactly how bad the damage is. Then you're going to decide whether you want to come clean to Thomas Mitchell or whether you want to live with this hanging over your head forever. Catherine, I'm not done. Elizabeth is going to quietly transition to a new opportunity. She's going to get a good reference and a decent severance, and she's going to leave without making a fuss. And you're going to come home every night at a reasonable hour from now on. No more late Wednesdays. No more mysterious meetings. You're going to be so transparent I can see through you like glass. And if I do all that? Ryan asked quietly. What then? Then we'll figure out if this marriage is worth saving, I said. But Ryan, I need you to understand something. I'm not the helpless wife you've been avoiding coming home to. I'm the person who figured this all out while you and Elizabeth thought you were being clever. I'm the person who knows everything now. So if you ever treat me like I'm stupid again, I won't ask questions. I'll just make phone calls. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Do we understand each other? I asked. Yes, he whispered. Good. Now let's go back to dinner before people start wondering where we went. I walked back to the ballroom. After a moment, Ryan followed. At our table, Margaret Mitchell asked if everything was all right. I said everything was fine. Elizabeth just wasn't feeling well and had gone home early. Thomas Mitchell made a sympathetic noise and said the flu was going around. The gift raffle happened. Someone won a spa basket. Someone else won a gift certificate to a steakhouse. Everyone clapped politely. Ryan sat next to me, not eating, not talking, his face gray. I finished my chocolate mousse. It was delicious. We stayed until the end of the party because leaving early would have looked strange. We said goodnight to Thomas and Margaret Mitchell, to the other associates and their spouses. Everyone said what a lovely evening it had been. In the car driving home, Ryan tried to talk. I turned on the radio. Classical music, a piano concerto. I hummed along. When we got home, I went upstairs and changed out of my red dress. Hung it carefully in the closet. It had served its purpose. Ryan stood in the bedroom doorway. Can we talk now? Tomorrow, I said. Tonight I'm tired. Catherine, please. Tomorrow, Ryan. He slept in the guest room that night. I slept better than I had in 6 months. 2 days later, Elizabeth Thornton announced she was leaving Mitchell and Harrison to pursue new opportunities. Her departure was friendly, professional. He got a good reference. She sent a thank you email to the whole office. Ryan started coming home at 6 o'clock. Every night like clockwork. 3 weeks after the Christmas party, he told me he'd gone to Thomas Mitchell. Confessed to the billing irregularities on the Peterson case. Offered to make financial restitution and accept whatever consequences the firm deemed appropriate. Thomas Mitchell, Ryan said, had been surprisingly understanding. Mistakes happen. Pressure does things to people. What matters is integrity and honesty when things go wrong. Ryan would be on probation for a year, his partnership track delayed, but he'd keep his job. I asked if he'd mentioned Elizabeth's access to the confidential files. He said he hadn't. Some secrets, he said, were better left buried if they didn't need to be exposed. I didn't argue. The marriage might not survive this, but at least Ryan was finally being honest. At least he was finally treating me like an equal instead of an obstacle to manage. Rachel called me a week into January. I heard Elizabeth Thornton left the firm. Friendly departure. Very friendly, I said. And your husband? Coming home on time. Telling the truth. We'll see. You did good, Catherine, Rachel said. You played it perfectly. I just asked a question, I said. The right question at the right time is more powerful than any accusation, Rachel said. You knew that. That's why it worked. After we hung up, I thought about that. About power and knowledge and the moment you choose to use both. About the years I'd spent making myself smaller, quieter, easier. I wasn't small anymore. And if Ryan wanted this marriage to work, he was going to have to learn to live with a wife who knew how to ask the right questions. What would you have said to Elizabeth? Drop your favorite moment from Catherine's power move in the comments below. If you loved watching her reclaim her dignity, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about women who refuse to stay silent. Your support means everything.